So, as most of you are no doubt aware, Outlaw Star was pretty popular. It got aired here about 1.5 million times, though if recent Toonami offerings are to be believed, that's no indication of quality. But after that series ended, there was an attempt to spin off the show. One such plan was Outlaw Star Sword of Wind, which is currently in production hell and will probably never be made. The other one is Angel Links. Remember that episode where Gene and the gang are strong-armed by some lizard guy and the blonde girl? Did you think to yourself, gee, I wonder what those guys are all about? Well, if you did, you're in luck. But if you're not that single solitary human being out there, this show will be a little off-putting. So to put it into perspective for you and yours, Outlaw Star finished up and Sunrise looked about for ways to make more bank off of it. So they snapped up some guy to write some light novels and adapted them, getting the writer of Outlaw Star to design the characters. This may seem odd getting a writer to do character designs, but let's see what it came up with. Huh. Boobies. Very nice. This is Mei Huan Lee, or Lee Mei Huan, or something. She's Chinese, and while I can pretty reliably say Japanese names, Chinese names escape me. As the head of the Angel Links Corporation, she's pretty well known, moving up in the world at the tender age of 16. Huh, only 16? With those boobs, I expected to be at least 14. I guess some girls just develop more slowly. Though this does bring up an interesting concern for me. Why are the protagonists always so young? Especially for a character who's sporting basketballs on her chest and very clearly sexualized, would it be so wrong to call her 18? Or, God forbid, 21? Granted, this was made way back when anime women were still allowed to have any sort of tits at all, so I guess I should enjoy the sight, but it still skeeves me out more as I get older. I should note that I also have this problem with guy characters, especially ones like Baki the Grappler, or similar shows with exceptionally young protagonists for what they've accomplished, or their massive, rippling physiques. But as usual, they never asked me, so I guess this is what we get. Though, while I'm ragging on looks, she never looks quite right no matter what she does or how she moves. I don't know if it's because I'm already disappointed in the show, or if it's because she's just over-designed, but she always does look a little odd. Maybe they were banking on keeping everyone's attention on her boobs and taking it off the weird Cheshire cat mouth and eyes that never seem to know what size they're supposed to be. Luckily, they managed to level it out by the 5th episode, but it still looks like she cakes on eyeliner with a spade every morning. This is only compounded by the production quality that just tanks after 3 episodes. But more on that later. Hey, Prophet, what do you think of her outfit?
Outfit? You know, I'm just as educated in this shit as you, and you call me in to ask about her outfit?
Well, I figure that people will listen to a girl about costuming more than they would me.
Damn these breasts of mine. Fine, you want to get some boobs on screen? Here we go. She looks like she threw her clothes into a paper shredder before she put them on, and then put on an extra 4 layers of crap when she realized how trashy she looks. Valeria looks like she's supporting the body paint industry all on her own, and most of the rest of the female characters are so bland that nobody can tell who's who. Happy now?
Yes. Yes, I am. Anything else to say?
Yes. The dialogue in the show is absolutely atrocious. When it's not adding meaningless words in to match the dialogue, like most of the early Ocean Group dubs, it's trying its hardest to be charming and witty. Mayphone is none of these things, so she just comes off as annoying. If anything about her was compelling, it'd show up in the dialogue and the action, not through her sticking her butt out and hoping for the best.
Well spoken, young miss, though it's a little odd to hear from you, considering how low that tank top dips.
I'm not sexy. I'm just drawn that way. And the damn top won't button any further.
So you remember how Outlaw Star had a really interesting and diverse universe, with a compelling mix of fantasy and sci-fi? Yeah, forget all that happened. Angel Links only has the barest hint of resemblance to that universe, and honestly, the show could be forgiven for a lot of its sins if it just was not related to Outlaw Star. It could also be forgiven if it stopped targeting up its female lead like a cheap hooker, but what you gonna do? The show has all sorts of problems, even without being shallowly connected to a really good show. Alright, fine, I will do my best to forget that this is related to Outlaw Star, and focus on the show itself. This would be a lot easier if they didn't keep making sidelong glances to the parent show, of course, like grappler ships and dragonite crystals and ether and all that. And since most of the reason of watching this stinker came from that fact, it only makes it worse. Anyway, Mei Huan and her boobs are joined by Dews, a dragon thing, and Valeria, who looks remarkably like Kara Soon from Double Zeta Gundam. About one of you will appreciate that reference. Duz is a proud warrior race guy, and Valeria is some sort of tactical genius. Kosei, the ship's resident pretty boy, is in love with Mei Huan, and her co-stars are giant boobs. And does this at all sound interesting yet? Because I've sat through some boring shit in my life, but this is kind of amazing. It's like a train wreck that crashed into a boating accident that crashed into a low-altitude collision. After that got hit by a comet.
Remind me not to put you in charge of public relations.
The Angel Lynx fights for free in space against pirates because there's apparently not a government out there. Seriously, who's building this stuff for pirates if there's not a government superstructure doing the manufacturing? This is some pretty goddamn expensive stuff for this whole universe to be running under some sort of weird Shadowrun syndicate world. I suppose being out there in the big black would make it really easy to hide, but the minute you stuck your nose into a main shipping lane, you get cooked off by a long-range missile from a destroyer. And another thing, while I'm chattering about space, why do they fight facing the galactic plane? Why not use all axes? You can move in 3 dimensions, people. Those big guns only face forward.
Oh, he's yelling again.
So Mei Huan has this problem. She thinks she's a busty Lena inverse. She's nowhere close, but that doesn't stop her from trying to be a bandit killer and all gung-ho about fighting for stuff. She fights for her grandfather's legacy, which told her to take over his company and start fighting pirates. However, on her first sortie out, it turns out that the gun on her immensely powerful and immensely impractical ship is a little stronger than she was expecting.
My screen is showing several merchant vessels that are caught in behind the pirate ships. 17 vessels in total.
Whoopsie daisy! Now it's good and broke.
So she sets off on a mission to annoy the entire fucking universe and leave a trail of corpses in her wake. Chen-Ho Lee, you just turned your granddaughter into a sociopathic killing machine. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm going to Disneyland.
So I made a note earlier that I'd complain about the animation. It's pretty lousy. The whole show looks like it's produced on a budget that makes shoestrings look positively plump. They clearly blew through their budget in the opening episodes and had to downshift it, which means that not only does the show feel exceptionally disjointed, but the animation looks utterly terrible, and the crisp lines of the digital animation jar uncomfortably against the thick lines of the still animated stuff. I've seen more convincing effects in PS1 games, for God's sakes. Add in the fact that Mei Huan's boobs, which may as well get top fucking billing for as much screen time as they get, seem to go somewhere between a softball and a volleyball every other shot. On top of the fact that they seem hell-bent on animating every possible jiggle, this show just makes mistake after mistake. On its most basic level, it's barely worth the effort to lift up and put in a DVD player. And yet once I watch an episode, I'm fascinated by how shit it really is. You can tell that the animators were trying their damnedest to put out something they could be proud of, but the rest of the staff just completely dropped the ball. All balls. Every ball was dropped. Never. So many balls dropped. And it only gets worse. The dubbing on this is possibly the worst dub job I've ever heard, even above cheap-ass porn. Those dubs are funny. This is painful.
But isn't that spying?
It's for his own protection.
Speaking of Cupid...
This is beyond phoning it in. It's like phoning it in was phoning it in. When you have nothing to work with, I suppose nothing is what you get back. But in this case, I don't really feel like it was the actor's fault. The script is just so flimsy. It's like Kim Kardashian's reason for being famous. It's got no substance. Or taste, really. How are the people watching this supposed to care if you don't, production crew? On top of all that, the twist at the end is utterly telegraphed if you watch Chrono Crusade or Tekkaman Blade or really any anime in the last, say, 15 years. But hey, let's be honest, you don't give a fuck about these poor sods all the way. Or at least you didn't by the time you heard the acting. Or the term, a song of mermaids.
But why don't we all go where you want to go now?
She's right. So tell me, what would you like to do now?
Well, let's see. I want to hear a song of mermaids.
Yeah, I saw a song of mermaids once when they were opening for the ... I don't remember much about that evening other than the first songs made my hands turn into watermelons. Probably all the acid I took. Jury's still out on that one. All I remember is I think I woke up with a lung in my mouth. Angel Lynx is terrible on its own merits. It's shallow, boring, and predictable, and adds nothing to the Outlaw Star universe that was oh so very interesting. This has elements of that, but plays more like a self-insert fanfic written by a 5th grader. Lee Mei-hwan is beautiful, busty, the head of a major corporation, captain of a super powerful ship, has a mutant cat that turns into a sword.
She's your classmate and childhood friend who also happens to live next door. She's also a robot, but not just any robot, a maid robot!
Well, if the shoe fits. So at the end of the day, don't watch Angel Links. There are so many better things to be doing with your day. It's not fun, it's not witty, it's not even a remarkable sci-fantasy show. It's just some thing that happened in lieu of a good thing that happened. I like to imagine there's some kind of alternate universe out there where someone is enjoying Sword of Wind and thinking, man, it sure is good that they didn't make some boring new show that comes off like a poorly written fanfic. This is the kind of show that reminds me why I do what I do. The sheer awfulness of this show is enough that people should be warned about it, and it's chock full of things that I can pull apart. Unfortunately, the show is so lame that pulling it apart is like clubbing a baby seal. There's no challenge in pulling a show apart that's so threadbare and derpy, you know? But it is what it is. With Bandai pulling back its DVD production, it's easy enough to avoid getting stuck with this stinker like I did, but it's out there, watching, and waiting. So it is my duty to make sure that nobody gets too hosed by warning you about it. Shows with Angel in the title are starting to become a tip-off for something wonky to me. Angel Links, Angel Tail, Angel Beats, Burst Angel. Keeping this well in mind, it's why I'm going to crack on about Angel Beats in very short succession. Oh yes, be very afraid.
The future is in the past. Onward, Sayo Shuba!
Morning.